Welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace, the podcast that's out here to strive to get our minds right, to get us feeling good, and to get us involved in our world. Okay. Welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace. Today I have with me Jennifer Monroe. Jennifer Monroe runs a business. It's called Life Lessons. She is a coach. It's different than counseling. It's different than therapy. So the amazing question that we always ask at the very beginning of this show, this is a thing that is nostalgic and it's just the simplest question ever. Who is Jennifer Monroe? So please, Miss Monroe, take the floor and tell us all about yourself and give us a little insight in what you do.
So what I do is that I'm an ADHD and academic coach. I work primarily with struggling students, high school and college students, and I help them live their dreams. Oh, that sounds so cliche, um, but it's true. People with ADHD, people who don't fit into a neat category at school, kids who are struggling, they're not going to be your 9 to 5ers. They're going to be your surfers, your dancers, your music producers, your podcasters. And I want to help them find the path to their wonderfully unusual life.
Okay. Okay. Now let's go back a little bit. All right, you told us about what you do, but you didn't tell us about you.
Oh, I didn't, did I?
So can we get a little information about you?
Sure. Um, my name again is Jennifer Monroe. One thing to know about me is I'm a digital nomad. I live in a Jeep and a gypsy trailer, and I travel North America with my pet rabbit, Thor. Right now, we are in Colorado at 11,500 feet outside of Leadville. I grew up in Maryland and I went to Towson University where I got my
Baltimore. Okay.
Baltimore. I love Baltimore. Um, it's my favorite city. I'd rather be out in nature, so I spend a lot of time in West Virginia, in Virginia, out in the mountains. But if I'm gonna be in a city, I want to be in Baltimore.
All right, so I'll tell you a quick, crazy little bit real fast if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just over 2 weeks ago, with the type of job I do, I travel a lot. I was actually in Baltimore. I was staying down at the Baltimore Orioles, at the Hampton Inn, right there by the stadium. So I got to go
Yes.
over to Townsend, and in Townsend, there's this little small at the university on the corner. There's this little small food truck that makes a certain type of food called halal or something like that. It's however they pray over the food or something. So I
Hello.
would hello, yeah. I was just at this place eating this food at Townsend. I drove 45 minutes out of my way just to go there. So that's ironic that you said Townsend. And Owen Mills is another place that I like to venture to when I'm out there. But anyway, let's go on a little bit about you. So what got you into doing what you're doing today?
Um, I hate to admit it, but I had a life crisis. I was the person in need for a while. I have bipolar disorder, which affects my executive functioning skills, which is very similar to what happens to people with ADHD. I actually saw a chart online talking about how much time a person loses to their mental illness, which includes not just being sick, but going to doctor's appointments, doing exercises or counseling. And what I found was that they said bipolar disorder will take 40% of your life. And that could have been a horrible moment. That could have been a very depressing thing to read. But instead, I said, well, then I better go out and live that 60%. If I'm only getting 60, we better go do this. I can watch Star Trek when I'm sick. And I changed my life. I moved back home to Maryland for a while and then into West Virginia, into Martinsburg.
Okay.
And from there, I started studying, not just about me, but about executive functioning in general. I moved to Colorado for a little while and I worked at a correctional halfway house, working with felons who were trying to work their way out of the system. And I fell in love with them and that work. And it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to work with these people. I want to be the help they didn't get before they ended up in here.
Okay, and I appreciate
So,
that. Keep going.
yeah, I from there I took some courses. I am sorry, there's a B. Um, I took a lot of courses on executive functioning disorder, on education, psychology, sociology, and got my coaching certificate. I'm just about to get that this month. Yay. And I started coaching high school kids. And from there, I've just been growing my business and working with my students who I just adore.
Okay, so let's get to this nitty gritty real quick. What is the difference between coaching and counseling? Because therapy is a different directive when it comes to things, but counseling and coaching can kind of sometimes run parallel. So, what is the difference to you?
So that's a great question. And a lot of people ask it. And I hope to let people know the difference. Coaching helps you with your now. Counseling helps you work with your past and come to terms with it and integrate it into your life in a healthy way. I'm the person that helps you find your keys. we I work with my students so that we look at what's going on in their life now, what obstacles they're facing, how do we fix the problem or work around the problem. I'm a big fan of things like failure. You're not going to hear that from a lot of counselors. I want you to fail. I want you to go out, do amazing things and fail because in the end, that's the only way you're going to learn. And you might learn, boy, I don't want to do that again. But now you know for sure. And that's a big part of what we do is deal with now, today, what's going on in your life, and how do we get from here to where you want to be.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. How do you differentiate your approach when helping someone? Because obviously, dealing with these disorders, it's multifaceted. So what's the normal approach that you have to start off with someone? Say, like, I bring my son to you. He's autistic, but he graduated from being in special needs to going to regular classes. So obviously, he has some
Wonderful.
struggles. And his attention span, he has PPD and OS, so his attention span is low sometimes. Something has to stimulate him to keep going. So, what advice would you give him on finding stimulation inside the? We're not going to call it the norm, but we'll say in the general classroom that he can't get any more from being in, the special instruction classes.
Okay. I work with a lot of people who have spectrum disorder, people with learning disabilities. These often go hand in hand with ADHD and executive functioning disorders. Here's my advice. Stop trying. You're not good at it. It's okay if your attention isn't being grabbed in class, then don't learn it in class. Let's learn it after school. Let's get some YouTube videos, some books, a tutor, something that's going to grab your attention. During class, I don't want you to be disruptive. I teach my students to doodle while they take notes or to make little origami animals, things that keep their mind and hands busy. But if you're not getting your attention grabbed, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's if that classroom setting isn't for you, That's okay. We're going to find a way to work around it.
Okay. So working collaboratively with the parents, and in some cases, obviously you have to deal with some of their teachers because it's like it's a group effort. It's a village helping a student. Um, have you found any difficulties thus far, like with communication? Because like you said, you're off the grid, so cell phone service, Wi-Fi, and things like that. You have to put yourself in a position to be near some type of signal.
I do. I have 3 hotspots and 2
Ooh.
computers. I love being out in nature. So I do like to be off grid when I can be. Obviously, not often, but I can get right up to the edge of the grid. I check out every place I'm going to be before I'm going to be there. Either I go there or somebody else I know who lives van life will be here and they'll let me know what the Wi-Fi signal is like. There's actually an app for where people contribute. Oh, I was at Lake Meredith in Texas and I got a great Wi-Fi signal on AT&T. So then I know that and I pull out my AT&T hotspot and use that. You'd be amazed nowadays where you can go and get a great signal.
Okay, okay. And I like that because that helps people understand more of the process with you. So I need to dig a little bit deeper into you because I got to make you a little bit more personable to the audience. So when
Okay.
when dealing with these students, and these students can range from high school to college, with you, and if you do need to get any reference parents or even someone that knows someone that needs help, head over to www.lifelessonsbyjennifer.com. That's a easy way to get things started. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So
I
go ahead.
I am also on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see my travels, I'm on YouTube
Okay. So there's a
under
YouTube.
Oh look, it's a bunny.
Oh, look, it's a bunny. Okay. So dealing with all this stuff and being on the road, you do have your animal with you. And I know you have different companions and different people you visit with, but how do you take care of yourself, like self-care? Because being in solitude gives you a higher sense of being, like a higher intellect. Like when I'm alone, I can focus more. I can get more things done. I can get rid of mental anguish. So, what do you do, and what are your processes? And the reason I'm asking this is because when a customer, client, or anyone starts doing business with you, that's the one thing that people will never ask and ever wonder about the actual person that's helping.
That's a great question. Um, this is my self-care. I used to live in a house and work from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. and make dinner and no, that did not work. That was bad. And one day I realized I don't have to sit still. The great thing about being a nomad is I can get up and move. If I'm not feeling inspired by where I am, if I'm not enjoying myself, I leave. I go someplace new. Sometimes I will travel with others. Um, right now, I'm traveling with a friend of mine who lives in a school bus. Other times, I like to be alone. I do enjoy that solitude. I find very much like you do. I am much more efficient. I'm much more productive when I'm on my own. And this is my self care. This is how I make myself happy.
Okay, and I thank you for that because that's one thing that when people can recognize that, it makes them want your service more, that it makes them want to engage more, and that's something that gets lost in translation when you're doing business because people are like, hey, I want to do this, do this, do this, and they never ask about you technically. And I mean, I know in some places they don't have to ask about you, but still it's a good thing to know. So you've already told us about being a digital nomad. You've told us about your bunny, or your it's a bunny, not a rabbit, right?
It Bunnies live in houses or trailers. Rabbits live out in the woods.
Okay.
That's my thinking.
Okay. So, with your bunny being with you, do you have talks with your bunny sometimes to acknowledge things that are going on? Do you let your bunny be in on some of your functions just to?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Nobody's ever asked me that. That's great. I do. I talk to my bunny a lot. And another thing that I do is I often congratulate my bunny on a job well done. It's a step in a process. We're so quick to find fault with ourselves, and we're always our own worst critic. What I tell people is you need to congratulate yourself, but that always feels so weird to people. you know. So what I do is I say, well, then congratulate your pet. Say, you know what, Thor, you did a great job in class today. And I'll even tell him, you know, did you see the student smile when we suggested that he do this? Did you hear the student when we talked to him about his problems? I kind of connect with my rabbit and give him a lot of credit as a way of congratulating myself.
Okay. Okay. And inside of the services you offer, could you break down some of the services that you offer?
Yes. So I do academic and ADHD coaching. We'll go over your life, your dreams, your obstacles, and see if we can't create the life that you really want to live. People know about coaching. Another service I offer is what's called body doubling.
Okay. What is that?
Now, have you ever been sitting around and somebody in the house is cleaning and you just feel compelled to go clean?
Yes.
Yes, that is body doubling. When somebody is with you doing what you're supposed to be doing, you feel compelled to do it too. I work with students where my job is to sit there and to work. So they see me working and they work along with me. Then I'm also there because I have taught, I am a tutor. So I'm there for questions. And it motivates students to get their work done, get that homework done, especially when you have trouble focusing. There's somebody there to call you out and go, I noticed you've been looking out the window for about 4 minutes. I think we're done looking out the window. Let's get back. And that's one of my favorite things to do because students at the end will say, wow, I got 3 chapters done today. And I didn't think I was going to get through them, but just seeing somebody else work made them want to work too.
Okay. And I like that concept. Yeah. That's
It's it's surprisingly effective.
now,
Pardon me.
over on your website, I noticed that you have a blog on there.
I do. I try to keep up with it, but I have my own procrastination issues. I even have a blog entry about why I haven't blogged in a while because of my procrastination. I try to take a casual conversational approach. If you look at my blog, you'll notice the first entry is a pep talk. I want people to feel good. I want people to know that, yeah, there are things that are going on in your life that you're not happy with, but that doesn't mean your life is unhappy. So I will talk about things like why I haven't blogged in a while, and I'll talk about procrastination and how we can use procrastination in a positive way. My latest blog post is me falling off of a motorcycle.
Whoa.
I was recently at the Overland Expo, and a friend of mine said, come on, you got to go try to drive a motorcycle. And they had a little demonstration and mini lessons. And boy, I fell on my butt so hard. And he got it all on film. And I got up and I was laughing and I was having the best time. It was the most amazing experience. And I didn't feel as if it was a bad experience because I fell. I felt like it was a great experience. I'd never fallen off of a motorcycle before. That was great. And I remember I got up, I'm laughing, and my friends got my phone, and I'm like, "Did you get that? Did you get that on film?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got it on film." I'm like, "That's going on YouTube, baby."
So that kind of stuff happens with your blogs. So going forward, what are your plans for the future? What can we find coming from you outside of this? Because here's a crazy thing in life: we start doing things right, just like you said, you had a little crisis and you bounce back from it, just like a phoenix raising out the ashes. So doing this work will fill a large void of what you didn't have. But what's next? Because here's the thing: outside of this pandemic, there's been a new aspect that's happened to people. People are reinventing themselves multiple times. They're doing it more because we had so much free time then that we were able to relax, and now we have that in our system. Now it's not something that we were conditioned for 10 years ago. We were just told, get the education, go do the job. If you have aspirations or hobbies, like podcasting would have been a hobby had we, for some people, I mean, I was doing it beforehand, but it would have been a hobby for most. So, or is a hobby for most still right now. And then they're turning it into something, making money, and they're no longer working their normal 9 to 5. So what's the next step for Jennifer? What's the next evolution for you outside of this?
Um, I'm not sure. I've thought outside of this, I've thought more about where I want to go with this, which is
Okay.
I want to have an effect on the larger coaching community. Um, I'm not happy with the coaching community. I'm going to be honest. You wouldn't think it because we're all life coaches. It's very competitive, it's very cutthroat. I want to help change that culture. I want to get life coaches together to work together, to see each other as colleagues and coworkers,
Okay.
and to create a sense of community that right now we're lacking.
Okay. And I can see that. Now, I pay homage to this show. It's called 2020. 2020 was a news magazine when I was growing up that I was in love with. I mean, it was one of those things where you just knew that was going to be on TV Friday nights. It came on it came on at 10, and the crazy thing was that John Stossel was on there. John Stossel was a comedian to a degree with the things that he talked about. Diane Sawyer to me was the best interviewer out of her and Barbara Walters. You give Barbara Walters her respect because she's the older statesman or stateswoman of that show. So she asked questions that were way more personal or heavy into detail, but they basically kept you going. They kept you, in a certain realm.
Yeah,
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a few 2020 questions. We're not going to do the
let's
John.
do it.
We won't do the John Stossel questions because for all that we could just do a live one night and have fun with that. And I'll ask maybe one or two Diane Sawyer questions. I'll
Okay,
start off obviously with Diane Sawyer because she would have been what you heard earlier. Um, and we will keep going from there. All right.
sure.
All right. So here it goes. Um, First off, taking time to help people with ADHD and the executive, hold on, I've lost it. Executive, is it directions?
Functioning.
Yeah, functioning. Helping with that is a time consuming matter. So you have to displace time for that. You can't just sit around and not allow yourself not to take care of that kind of stuff. So with that being said, uh how do you specialize and take time for these people? Like, how do you know? Like, do you allot 45 minutes as an excuse? Because we had a discussion in a pre-call about something that happened with me and me myself personally. I'll give you a little stick so you can think about this. For me, for instance, if we have an interview and it's supposed to be at 4 o'clock, for instance, or 5 o'clock, I wait until 5:06. At 5:06, I send you a notice. It's a nice thing. I say, hey, it looks like we missed our interview. Um, and depending on the content and how our conversation went prior, because I always try to be very business savvy, but be friendly at the same time. If our conversation was just business and there was no filler, then I know that I have to cancel your interview and say, I wish you the best on your future endeavors. And that's so different than what you're doing. But if it's someone that I become friendly with, we become familiar. A lot of times, if you hit me with one of these little West Virginia stories or Virginia stories or even Maryland, you got me already tied into it. We're friendly, we're cordial there just because you're from my area, you know. So I will take an extra step for that person, and no disrespect to anybody from that's not from the Mid Atlantic or anything like that. But I'll take time and we'll figure something out. So how do you differentiate the time and how much time you can set aside for these people when you have them, you know?
Okay. Um, well, I do hour-long, 45 minutes to an hour sessions with my students. Um, we were talking before we started, and my attitude is if you're not showing up, it's because I haven't taught you how yet. That is an executive functioning problem that a lot of people have where they're late or they miss things. And because of the people I deal with, I always say my late policy is that I don't have one.
Okay.
Okay. I will stop sitting on the computer at 15 after our appointment. But when you come to me and say, oh, it's 25 minutes late, I'm going to make sure we get a reschedule in there as soon as we can. And I will rearrange my life for it. Being an ADHD coach, my life is about missed, canceled, and rescheduled appointments.
Okay.
And I don't ever want my clients or students to feel like they're embarrassed or they feel bad and they're afraid to come to our next session because they're embarrassed because they missed the last one.
All right. Okay.
So while I technically have office hours, I don't. I will get on the computer at 4 in the morning for somebody who's in on the East Coast when I'm on the West Coast, and I will stay up all night to do it the other way.
Okay. And I can appreciate that because you're explaining and people know that they're able to do that with you. All right. So going deeper into this real quick. Um, you have a student that's having a rough time. You're 32 miles away from that student by chance. You have a chance to actually meet up with that student. Do you meet up with that student or do you still keep this policy of being where you are away from that person?
Oh, oh no, we're going out for ice cream. If I get a chance, and I have occasionally, where I'm in the area of one of my students, I always invite them out. Let's go get ice cream. Let's go get hot chocolate, depending on the season. Let's go see your favorite places. I want you to show me around your life a little. I build a relationship with these kids, where I'm not going to say we're friends because they're teenagers,
Right.
but we're close. We build a relationship and I want to be part of their lives. If I have a chance to go see where they hang out after school, I want to see that. If I can meet their friends and family, that would be amazing. That not only gives me insight into them, it also enhances my life.
Okay. Okay. And I can go with that. And I like that. Now, the further and further that you get in depth with your students and you see them through some years, let's say you start ninth grade with them to 12th grade. Um, would you personally make some time to come to a graduation or is it
Absolutely. Absolutely. I made plans. Unfortunately, due to circumstances on the kids' end, it was canceled, but I made plans to go see one of my students who surfs, to go see one of his competitions. If they have a special event, if they're doing something that speaks to them, that means something to them, yeah, I want to be there. Absolutely. I have a wedding to go to later this fall
Ooh.
from actually my very, very first client, who started out as a student, and then we kept working together, and I just got involved in his life, and I, you know, knew about this relationship since he had a crush. I knew about it before she did. So I'm
Okay.
very excited about that.
Okay. Now let's get into a difficult situation. And this is something that has to be asked because people get lost in translation with this, and it hurts me, but I always like to know this. You get out here and you're working with someone, and we're talking about the initial 3 to 7 days that you're working with them, and you're trying to keep a compatibility going. Is there an instance where you have to pull back when there's not a compatibility, or do you stick it out with that person? Because some people, um, through services, will see it out and will figure a way around things. But in some instances, maybe you're not the help that they need, and maybe they need a different structure. So, what is your thought and your position on that?
I'm fairly good at reading people, and I have a good idea of, is it just reluctance? Is it just, this is a new weird thing that I'm doing? I'm talking to somebody online about my issues. If that's the case, we're going to work through that. But if we're just not clicking, if they feel like I'm not getting them, if I feel their discomfort, I'm going to help them find a new coach.
Okay.
I'm going to say, I'm not sure we're going to click here, but I know somebody great. That's another reason I want to connect with other coaches and change the culture. Because if I'm not the right coach for you, somebody out there is. And I want you to have that.
And see, that right there is what I appreciate. So, in finding this other coach, how are you going to instruct them? How are you going to help them facilitate what this person needs? Because you've seen what they need, right? But it just, they couldn't get the message through you. How do you collaborate and get that person or that that other help aligned with your former client?
So I will sit down with the coach and the student at the same time, introduce them, and just give a little synopsis. This is what they're looking for. This is wonderful things that I know about this coach, and let them take it from there. It's, I don't want to push my way in. If
Okay.
we're not connecting, I want you to connect with the other person.
Reflecting back on this conversation with Jennifer Monroe, it was a pretty amazing conversation for me to have with her because it was like basically at the end of this conversation, she gave some insight that you normally don't get from someone. So I definitely want to thank Jennifer Monroe for that, and definitely check in the show notes to find out where you can meet and greet her across the internet. And stay tuned for more to come from West Virginia and Commonplace. I am JR. I am signing off. And once again, let me go back in there and throw in all that extra stuff. www.wbuncommonplace.com. We are here to help other podcasters if you need help with consulting, different little things that we can help you niche down, stuff like that. We have shirts and everything else on our Square site. Everything is within the link tree on Instagram. So please make your way over there and take advantage of all that great stuff that West Virginia and Commonplace has to offer.